Honestly, if you have to ask why you should be excited about Fnatic in G2, you haven't been watching.
In our coverage of the EU LCS, I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined in this by Andrew Vedius Day, and just coming out of the advert was a reminder that later tonight is the Spring Finals rematch between Fnatic and G2 Esports. Now, we are going to bring to you, let me rephrase that, I'm going to bring to you my own version of Bingo. I like to call it Quickshot Bingo, and we're going to headline this one called the Clash of Kings. Vedius, I'm not sure if you've seen that at LOL Esports on Twitter. There's a little grid, and I know you're from Wales. Bingo's pretty popular where you're from, right?
Oh yeah, mate. From down where I'm from in South Wales, we actually played Bingo growing up. It was a big pastime, you know. My favourite one was 2 little ducks, 22. Quack, quack, haha. Everyone had a good old time. So get over onto Twitter, get involved in the fun. There's all kinds of banter going on.
And of course, the key is you want to get a horizontal or vertical. Listen out for those words. Let's see if you can get Bingo. That's Match of the Week, Game 5 of the day. We're a little bit away from that, though. For now, it is Splyce taking on H2k. We're about to jump into picks and bans, and Vedius, both of these teams at 0 and 4, winless to start the summer split. Somebody is going to turn this split around starting now.
Yes, mate, someone's got... sorry. Yes, my friend, you are quite right. Vladimir has already been taken off the board from the side of Splyce Irelia as well. Looks like some pretty power picks are just coming through for the time being. Last week, interestingly, we saw Smittyj shifting more towards these carry-style top lanes, things like the Fiora, the Jax. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of them, considering that it forces you into this 1-3-1 style, which H2k have never really found a lot of success with. Usually team fighting is what they found a lot of success with. So I'd love to see them draft strong laners, things like Xayah, Rakan, that will get them a bit of early priority, but also can force fights around the first couple of items. Okay, let's see what Smittyj and the rest of H2k decide to lock in. As far as picks and bans go, just a reminder that Aurelion Sol is globally disabled for all competitive games on patch 8.12. Vlad, Irelia, kaSing away from Splyce. They go insta-lock Aatrox. On the other side, you wanted some playmaking. How about a Rakan and a Yasuo? That leans into the direction you were looking for. And we expect that for Selfie, I assume, for that Yasuo. Well, you would imagine so, but one of the great things about Yasuo is his flexibility. You can move him into all 3 lanes in the current meta, and it's up to H2k where they choose to put him depending on what matchup suits their needs. For Splyce, the fact that they put so much priority on an Aatrox early on implies that maybe they want to force H2k towards one of those kind of split pushes, so it's something they can look to abuse. Instead, for the time being, they're just putting their focus on getting a strong mid lane champion. Zoe has been one of the most popular mid laners outside of Irelia right now all across the world, given her long range poke, her ability to wave clear, and just the versatility that she can provide in the middle lane.
Also, the only champion to remain 100% pick and ban presence throughout the course of the summer split here in the EU LCS. A couple other champions in the high 90s, but she's definitely there. Lucian is now locked in for Kobbe, and there's the Xayah Rakan bottom lane for Sheriff Promisq.
So this is exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to see coming out from H2k. Not only is it a strong 2 versus 2, but it gives you priority down in the bottom lane as well. It also spikes pretty effectively on one item. We've been seeing a lot of Storm Razors come out, and while many don't like it, it is still a strong one-item spike, so H2k can look to fight earlier in the game, which was, as we talked about, one of their big strengths from last split.
All right, let's take a look at some of the Phase 2 bans now. Talking about the fighting, talking about the strength of Sheriff. That's where H2k will be looking. They've removed Pike, so at least one of those options to get in their face in that bottom lane is removed. Jax is the response from Splyce. I'm still looking for junglers here. What direction are they going to go? Nocturne, Talia, they're off the table.
Do you feel like Splyce need to throw a ban towards Fiora? She has been considered one of the strongest answers to Aatrox in the current meta, given that not only can she trade pretty well in lane, but she also outscales him extremely hard. She offers slightly less teamfight value, but Aatrox, given his single target damage, yes, he's difficult to kill in fights, but Fiora can be just as obnoxious, especially if she's able to proc that ultimate. So wouldn't be surprised to see Splyce take that off the board, and if they don't, someone like Smittyj is more than happy to pick that champion up.
Got a couple seconds left to figure it out. Another jungler was removed, it was with Camille. And in the last few seconds, Fiora finally banned away. So where does this push Smittyj? Traditional tank? I mean, Cho'Gath
I'd love to see something like an Ornn. Mundo is available as well. I think both offer pretty good versatility in terms of mid-game team fighting. Ornn is generally my preferred choice. I just think he's super well-rounded right now, and if you pair him up with an engaged jungler like Sejuani, you've got a really good teamfight composition that spikes pretty effectively on a single item. And I think this is the direction that H2k need to be going towards, as you know, their early game has not been the strongest.
Interesting, right? So leaning into the weak area of play, trying to shore that up with picks and bans. Yasuo, Xayah, Rakan, Sejuani. We know H2k are not great in the early game. We talked about this last week. We actually have some stats prepared in-game to highlight this again. And we'll see whether or not the practice in the last week, Vedius, is going to be enough to help H2k out. Splyce, they've got a couple seconds now to round out the composition. Expecting a jungler for Xerxe.
Trundle would be the champion that I would instinctively think, but you kind of lack an engage if you then go for that. It's typically a good matchup into the Sejuani, and I feel like they're going to be funneled into this kind of a position unless they want to go for something a little bit more aggressive.
All right, so Trundle as expected. So while we wait to see what H2k round their comp out with, I mean, you've already touched on the engage. You're anticipating the likes of a Mundo for Smittyj. Ornn is still up, Cho'Gath as well if they're running out that direction. So
you
what do you start to make?
You don't need the Ornn because you've got a lot of engage with Rakan and you've also got the Sejuani there. So I think just having an obnoxious tank that can threaten the backline, especially someone like a Zoe, she struggles to really do much against the Mundo, and once he gets his ult and all that magic resistance stacked, then he can just plow onto her and basically make her life impossible to really have any influence on those fights. So I quite like the composition from H2k, but for Splyce, they've gone a little bit more, well, all over the place, just a little bit, because I think they put a lot of early pressure on getting Odoamne this Aatrox, and during the laning phase you will struggle a little bit, but once he gets the Tiamat, he has a little bit more wave clear. Their 2v2 is pretty strong with Aatrox and a Trundle, and if they can leverage that towards the top side of the map, then great. But when you kind of look at Zoe and Lucian, you think, okay, they have decent one-item spikes, but really they kind of want to do two different things. Lucian is a little bit more about early game snowballing, using the pressure, trying to look for fights, whereas Zoe, she wants to kind of slow, more patient, set up for sieges, try and poke her opposition out. So it feels like the Splyce have a little bit of everything, but we'll kind of track how they make use of this as the game goes on. I
mean, it kind of leans into Splyce individual comfort and ability with the champions, maybe.
For sure.
Versus the synergistic combinations on H2k, you know? The team comp definitely adds some value to one another once they start grouping. We know H2k are pretty happy and pretty good at getting some team fights. That's actually how they won a lot of their games in the spring split. Coming back from late game, much is true for Splyce. So let's talk about this early game impact then. Sejuani and Trundle, they've got some pretty good lanes to play around. You've already alluded to Xerxe can go top photo. Shook has got some options, really everywhere actually. Can synergize well with all that CC. What would you expect?
Well, I'm expecting him to go towards the bot lane. I think that H2k should look to just play around the bot side of the map and just make sure that Sheriff and Promisq can get ahead in the early game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to perma-gank it. It's just around maintaining control. We saw last game the great vision control from Misfits, where they just threw control wards pretty much throughout the river, and I'd love to see a similar sort of playstyle towards Shook. Just leave Smittyj, he's Mundo. Even if he dies, yes, it sucks. But he is a tank that's always going to offer value later on, so as long as he doesn't fall into such a massive deficit that Odoamne can 1v9, then I think that H2k playing towards bot side is the most effective strategy for them.
Well, let's see what Odoamne can do, whether or not Xerxe is going to help him out. Actually, there's a little bit of jungle proximity there, which we'll get to later. For now, let's look at these stats, Xerxe and Shook. It's two players that we've talked about and we've shone a light on a fair amount. Two guys that have been struggling in the opening weeks of the Summer Split. And when we look at some of the statistics in terms of kills plus assists at 15, 0.5 to 0.8 on average per game.
Yes.
Kill participation, 55% for Xerxe. When you're not getting a lot of kills, you're not going to be doing a lot with him as well.
And what surprises me the most is H2k have a lower jungle proximity with their jungler, yet a higher kill participation with Shook. And that basically means that H2k kind of lives and dies in the early game by the amount of influence Shook is able to have. And this is something we've talked a lot about over the last few weeks, where if H2k want to find early game leads, they have to do it through their jungle. Whereas for Splyce, you still have some individual talent like Nisqy and Odo who have been playing pretty well, And so they haven't been as reliant on their jungler, but when the Splyce were making their way up in the standings, finishing the regular season in 3rd place, it was off the back of Xerxe's influence, particularly around Odoamne.
Yeah.
And so far, he has not been able to do that at all.
Okay, so Vedius, I know you know this, but we talk a lot about jungle proximity. And of course, jungle proximity is the amount of time a jungler spends near his laners between 3 and 15 minutes. And you see that little stat that's flown out over Odoamne's face? Last week, he had 0% jungle proximity.
To illustrate, when you're dead and you walk past someone's dead body, that will still give you jungle proximity.
So what does this mean, though? What does 0% actually mean?
It means that Xerxe has looked at top lane and gone, nah, and just walked off. He does not care about top lane at all.
And does that have to change this game?
Oh, man, it just needs to change in general. You've got to show top lane occasionally. Poor Odoamne, this guy, you heard him on the podcast, he found out about that stat and he was just like, oh, that is definitely not good. And in this situation, you kind of want to be utilizing some of the strengths that Aatrox has as a diver to try and get some kills onto Smittyj, start snowballing Odoamne.
Well, look at this, look at this. 3 minutes in, that means the jungle proximity timer has started. Xerxe's in range, he's got 1% proximity. Smittyj is going to be the target, thank you for the cheers there. As Smittyj continues to get dove here. Odo's going to be able to use that passive very, very well. Gets procced under the tower, and a flawless first blood for Splyce.
This is a perfect setup for Odoamne getting that first kill up towards the top side of the map. While it did drop to Nisqy, this is the kind of playmaking we wanted to see from Splyce. Use the Aatrox and the Trundle, which is a great duo, to get some kills onto the Mundo where you expect the jungler not really to be playing around. So, great start for Splyce, and we can just see now how the dive comes to be. A couple of executional errors, we could say, from the side of Splyce. Odoamne using his Q to zone, we'll say, zone Smittyj from his primary escape route. And the rest of Splyce have more than enough damage, utilizing the Aatrox passive to just heal back up and not lose any minutes.
All right, so nicely done. Splyce, as a reminder, will be representing EU at Rift Rivals tomorrow. We're going to take a look forward to North America versus EU, the clash at Rift Rivals. Splyce, Fnatic, and G2 will be representing the EU LCS. Send us your best NA versus EU memes, all right, memes, using that hashtag #ReadyCheck at LOL Esports. We'll take a look at those. Anyways, we're taking a look at the bottom lane. kaSing and Kobbe under a little bit of pressure from Xerxe and Promisq. We've got super, ultra, mega traditional 2v2s.
Yep.
And I'm a little uncomfortable, Vedius. I haven't cast this in a while. I don't really know what to expect.
Well, what you can expect is Xerxe and Promisq to have a lot of control during the laning phase. You can already see they built up a pretty healthy CS lead. And it's also comforting for many H2k fans because they're getting to see what they've wanted for a while. Xerxe on a carry, Selfie on a carry. These are two of the big damage dealers that help H2k get themselves a successful second half of the spring split. Yeah. And they're the ones that are going to be wanting to get ahead in this early game, especially this bot lane. But now comes Xerxe to try and turn things around.
It's so difficult to catch a Xayah Rakan. Look at this. Xerxe's already moved away. Promisq easily gets out with the kit. They're birds. They just fly away.
Fly away.
Do you know, when you're driving, how many times have you ever hit a pigeon while you're driving?
I've never hit a pigeon.
Exactly, because they're so quick. They just fly away. So you need something much bigger and much scarier.
That explains why kaSing is so easy to kill.
See, there you go. Nevertheless, Shook, I think, won in the battle of the Scuttle Crabs. And Nisqy and Xerxe are going to trade a little bit in the middle lane. Splyce, a couple hundred gold up. They've got a CS advantage in the top lane, but they're in small deficits in the middle and the bottom lane. And Vedius, I know you're a mid laner yourself. Is this how this should play out, Zoe into Yasuo?
Well, one of the big reasons why there's a deficit right now is because Nisqy did roam up to the top side, and in terms of the gold, because he got first blood, he's a happy chap. He's more than fine being at this deficit. The experience will hurt him a little bit, so he's likely not going to get level 6 first, as we just saw from Selfie. But the one thing you've got to consider is that the longer Yasuo can just sit there and farm, the happier he is, because he's very much about getting those items and getting to a point where his value starts to scale up. So he doesn't need to dominate the lane, and the fact that things are going so well for him right now is pretty good for something.
Yeah, good job all around. I want to see what impact he can have. Got a couple of enablers with the Arctic Assault from Shook, with Promisq going in at that Grand Entrance, I think it's called.
You've forgotten
Quickshot?
I thought that was your thing.
I always get confused between Grand Entrance and Hero's Entrance, and I hesitate.
Oh.
When the Galio Yasuo comps were a thing, I got real nervous because there's too many words together, and Yeah, it just messed me up. But yeah, Selfie takes an ignite to the face. I think that was Nisqy's W, the spell feed there. So no real shenanigans yet. Splyce just an early, successful dive top, given Odoamne almost complete control of that lane. And Splyce looking pretty comfortable for now.
Both teams have played towards what we expected in the early game. And now we're going to start to see things shake up because both teams want to secure this red buff, and Sheriff and Promisq are waiting in the wing.
All right, boom, boom, boom. Odoamne is the target. Going to get knocked up into the air, and he's just blown up. Absolutely obliterated. Odoamne goes down. That's the first kill for H2k, and it goes to Sheriff, the primary carry you'd want at this stage of the game.
And the thing is, H2k don't really lose much because Sheriff has teleport. Kobbe used his TP to get down to the bottom lane. kaSing did roam up. But Sheriff was just like, you know what, that massive wave that was stacking up towards the bot side, typically I would lose that, but I don't need to anymore because I have this summoner spell, so I can just pick this up off the back of a kill as well. So H2k feeling pretty good. They are getting their bot lane ahead, just as we were talking about. That's what they wanted to be doing. And Splyce Odo, after getting a bit of pressure up towards the top side, that CS clap has now instantly closed because Smittyj has now had a free lane. He's even got himself a level advantage.
It's going to be very interesting to see how Smittyj's Mundo scales throughout the game. Going to be very difficult. I guess there is some synergy with Trundle Subjugate, remove some of those resistances. I like the fact that Odoamne's already picked up an Executioner's Calling. The value that you get into the healing reduction is so massive. And itemization-wise, Berserker's Greaves for Selfie and Kobbe. BF Sword picked up for Sheriff. Another fight over Scuttle Crab that I think Xerxe should be able to close out here, and he does. But we're approaching 10 minutes, and it feels like there's a lot of movement around this Infernal Dragon, but neither team has made a move for it just yet.
Not quite yet. Nobody wants to force anything because, to be honest, a lot of items haven't been completed. Neither team feels super comfortable trying to force a fight right now. I'm looking at Splyce's setup and Nisqy having completed the Lost Chapter, maybe, but they really don't want to bring Odoamne down. They want to keep him in this 1 versus 1 for as long as possible, get the farm coming, keep the pressure onto Smittyj, and if they then try to force a fight without Odoamne, then Kobbe on Lucian versus Sheriff on the Xayah, definitely not a fight you want to be taking this early.
Okay, so that'll be definitely the team communication and when they look for the initiation. Shook right now setting up for a dive on the bottom, got access to his ultimates. Special Prison is up and gonna run straight into Xerxe, so this will turn into a 3v3. kaSing's the first man forward, manages to look for the stun, won't connect it just yet, but look at the mobility. Those damn pigeons, they just get away every time.
Trying to swap them out, but Splyce there, persistent.
Yeah, Winter's Bite comes down, and look, kudos to Xerxe. Right place, right time. He thwarted the gank, even though they didn't get to turn anything around.
True.
Had he not been there, that could have got messy.
Can we just backtrack for a little bit? Can we stop comparing the bot lane to pigeons?
Okay, deal.
That's North Americans thing.
Touche.
At the very least, they're peacocks, Trevor.
Okay, touche. I'll go with peacocks.
They're flamboyant.
NA
they show off
versus
their
EU.
style.
NA versus EU next week. I'll dial it back on the NA memes.
Yeah, because they're all about the pigeons. We like real birds.
Yeah, very true.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
They're the rats of the sky.
They are the rats of the sky.
Yeah. Well, H2k gonna start this
Why do I
dragon.
find that so funny?
I'm not quite sure. You've got a strange sense of humor.
I do have a very strange sense.
Sweet summer child. But I want to bring us back to a question that I had right at the beginning of the game. Xerxe versus Shook, sort of underperformers. What will it take for either of these players in your eyes, Vedius, to start to turn that around? Because in my eyes, Xerxe's had a good first blood gank. He was right place, right time a minute ago. But, give me an evaluation of these guys and whether or not they're making the right calls.
All right, so for Shook to pass my quality bar, he has to be active. Whether it be vision control, whether it be just helping his laners push out, whether it be actually ganking, whatever it is, I just wanted to see him do stuff. And against G2 and Fnatic, he definitely felt more proactive last week. And so far this game, we haven't really seen him show much presence down towards the bot side, but you can see all the control walls that are lit in the bottom half of the river. So I'll say, you know what, so far Shook's doing a pretty decent job. He's playing towards the win condition of enabling his bot lane to be in a pretty good spot. For Xerxe, it's more than just having an early game impact, because the mid game is actually one of the big criticisms that I have for Xerxe. One thing that I was kind of spotting out last week when watching the VoDs was that this guy face checks a lot and he gets caught out of position a lot. You can see that his kill participation is relatively low, and part of that is just because when Splyce fight, he's one of the first people to die. He doesn't actually get involved in a lot of those kills, and it's because he's the one mispositioning. He's the one making poor decisions. So I need to see a little bit more patience and calculation from the side of Xerxe to kind of redeem himself and get back to the quality bar that he was at from last split.
Okay, I'll keep my eyes on his decision-making and face-checking. Right now, the map is somewhat split. Splyce relocated their duo top. This will allow them to pick up the first tower. And this will only be the third time in the 5 games they've played that Splyce got first tower and the bonus gold. H2k with that Infernal a few minutes ago. They picked up their second first dragon of the 5 games that they have played this split. Sheriff's going to get that solo gold, but this will also allow the Rift Herald to Splyce. So it just feels like the tools are a little bit in Splyce's favor, a little bit of extra momentum maybe.
Yeah, well, they were the first one to make the move, and that allowed them to get that early objective control, and shifting that for a Rift Herald as well is definitely very favorable given that they've already lost the Infernal, and now this should result in a mid-tier 1 eventually as well. And it gives Aatrox a slightly safer lane down towards the bottom side. He just has to be careful because he has no vision towards that area of the map right now. And Red is about to spawn. Wouldn't surprise me if H2k already set their sights on it.
They're already in the jungle, Vedius. And just look at the items, guys. There's 1, 2, 3, there's about 4 stopwatches in the inventories of both teams. Smittyj and Promisq on the side of H2k, Nisqy as well as kaSing on the side of Splyce. They could be pivotal. Promisq's going to look for an engage. Ooh, not too shabby. The quickness manages to tag Odo, who was already on his way out with a Dark Flight. So Odoamne's flash is blown for only Promisq's ultimate. That is a win, definitely in their books.
But now Splyce have had an opportunity to reposition. kaSing has TP'd in to help his team secure the red buff, and what could have been an easy objective secure for H2k ends up in nothing really because they tried a little too hard to force an extra kill down towards the bottom side of the map. So H2k is going to have to walk away with their tails between their legs, and now Splyce are in a position to group up mid and maybe even use the Rift Herald to secure themselves a tower. Okay,
Rift Herald still sitting with Xerxe. He's making his way towards the bottom lane. It's a Cloud Drake spawning next, so not the sexiest of the elemental drakes. And I think we'll say feathers behind the beaks instead of tails between the legs as they retreat through the jungle. We'll keep this bird puns, analogies, references up as the game plays out. And it's an even game here, Vedius. 1 tower to 1, 1 kill to 1. Gold is bang on even. And Kobbe is going to pick a fight with Sheriff. All right, going to use that passive. Culling comes out. Sheriff's able to escape with his life. That kind of fizzle wasn't the most exciting. Nisqy, ooh, got caught out. Manages to put Selfie to sleep, continues to chase. A paddle star goes forward. Spell Thief comes out, and Redemption dropped as well. But Selfie's able to escape. They ended up trading their actual flashes, and they held on to the cleanse and ignite.
Oh, I think so. Nisqy used his flash in that trade as well, and I think it's because he was predicting Selfie to flash a direction that would give Nisqy a little bit more range. Unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out the way he wanted, and means that it ended up being a flash for flash, but they do get the tower. So Splyce, again, punishing a good individual performance there from Nisqy.
Yeah, not too bad. Shook is looking for Odo once again. Odo escapes with that Dark Flight, but with mid-tower down, access to deeper parts of the north of the jungle, because remember, top outer is down as well. Splyce are playing the objective game pretty well, and they're just keeping H2k at arm's length. You know, it's not absolute control, it's not dominating, but it's definitely Splyce being in charge, dictating most of the moves that have happened this game so far.
I think both teams are happy because they don't have to get against some of the early powerhouses that they've been up against so far this split. Misfits, G2, Fnatic. I've kind of been steamrolling the early games against both these teams, so they have a little bit more time to think about their next decision and play the slightly more patient game.
You know, at 15 minutes, both of these teams average a 2,300 gold deficit. This game was around 200.
That's nice.
So
a little bit more pleasant.
Significantly more even.
Yes.
But then again, you are looking at team number 9 and team number 10 in the EU LCS at 0 and 4. So both of these teams have a lot to prove and a lot to develop, which for Splyce is, I think, a shocker. For the team that finished 3rd in spring, to start this badly, even though we anticipated the meta wasn't in their favor, that maybe the players would be a little more uncomfortable, I didn't think it was going to be quite this severe or this shocking.
No, I agree, Mr. Henry. And I think that for Splyce, getting a win here is the start. But we'll see how the game progresses, because we just want to see changes for Xerxe, one of the big players. We wanted to see Kobbe and kaSing as well, kind of performing better. a 2v2 bot lane that was renowned for being consistent and staple and very reliable has not been that so far. They've been dying in the 2 versus 2. The positioning in fights has been all over the place, and this next potential big fight could be a way in which could swing the game either way.
All right, let's take a look. Dancing on the edge of safety. 1,800 hit points on the Cloud Drake. He's going to back away. Sleepy Trouble bubble onto Sheriff. He's flying in the air. Manages to get knocked up by the Glacial Fissure as well. Here comes Odoamne. Whoa! Goodbye, Promisq. I think he got a paddling.
Yeah, Promisq just got skewered out of the sky right there. Taken down in an instant will allow Splyce to secure an easy Cloud Drake. Very squishy support. And with a single item, Nisqy just one-shots.
Is it, what is it when you go clay pigeon shooting? There we go.
You know, I'm really good at that.
Sniped by Odoamne and Nisqy. See, they didn't use the car.
Because the trick is with that, right, is you don't actually shoot where they're at, you predict where they're going to go. And so we'll see how well Nisqy predicts the pathing in which Promisq takes, because they think that you're focusing the pigeon on the right, but no, it's the clay pigeon on the left. And so as he's making his way up through the escape, Nisqy predicts it and throws it for a clean shot.
I'm going to ask a question to which I think you're not going to have the answer, but I'm going to try it anyway. Can peacocks fly?
No.
No?
Their
Sheriff was flying for ages.
I think it's like to do with their wingspan to weight ratio or something. I reckon they can glide, but I don't think they could get a good flight.
Like if they jump off a cliff? How are they going to glide? Why will they get airborne?
It's like Spyro, dude, you know?
Okay, right.
You just need it to get from like one ledge to the other. Okay. Or, you know, you like walk up the steps to your hut in the evening, you're like, oh, I've had a rough day of peacocking, and then you come back, and then, and then you just glide out.
What I love about my stats team is they've actually just pinged me in my ear and said, here's a quick stat. Peacocks can fly for 100 meters.
What?
There's a quick stat.
That's like a
I'm
falling with style. Come on.
I'm actually getting disappointed looks from the audience here in Berlin. Thank you for putting up with my terrible, terrible antics. But Splyce are not putting up with any of the Peacock antics because they managed to get themselves that kill into Promisq. They maintain control of this game. They got that dragon as well, and with the item spikes coming in, with Ravenous Hydra, as well as Luden's Echo, Blade of the Ruined King, starting to build through. Splyce, you know, they're going to be comfortable looking for some fights.
Yes.
Titanic Hydra.
I'm curious as to how they actually set up a lot of these fights, because we talked a lot about how H2k have a pretty good team fight composition. You have engaged with Sejuani and the Rakan. You have the Yasuo in terms of team fight damage. The knock-up, if it's able to be set up by Promisq, is going to be terrifying. And then you also have Sheriff, who on the Xayah is going to be pretty strong, especially around this first item, second item point. So H2k do have a lot of tools in terms of the team fight, and I think Zoe's really going to struggle against this Mundo and the Sejuani as well. Yeah. But the one thing that Splyce do have is it's very obnoxious to actually get close. You have a Braum and a Zoe, both with which make it very difficult to close the gap. You also have a Trundle pillar there as well, and then you also have the mobility of a Lucian that can kind of kite back and dodge a lot of the skill shots that H2k are going to look to throw out. So I think that it could be challenging to actually start a fight with Splyce, and that's why right now they're just using the priority that they have on these side lanes. Aatrox was able to secure the tower in the bot lane. Zoe's wave clear is enabling her to just keep mid-wave push, which is allowing Splyce to secure a lot of vision control in both sides of the map. And they're actually just not looking to fight right now. They're kind of waiting for their second item where they're going to feel a little bit more secure, especially the Aatrox. Once he gets that Rage Blade, he's going to be much happier when it comes to doing the whole murder thing. Watching the game play out, it feels like a slightly Spring Split style game. Yeah, a little more. It doesn't have that 8-11, 8-12 spice that we've been seeing. Oh, you mean like 30 kills at 20 minutes? But it's also these two teams, right? These are two of the weakest early game teams in the Summer Split that struggled with the meta, struggled with their own play styles. And that's why at 21 minutes, it's a 2,000 goldie for Splyce. It's still a lead. It's still an advantage. And Splyce are definitely in control of the game, but it's not a gigantic margin. H2k want to turn that one around. There's going to be a knock-up there caught onto kaSing. I think he was taken out by that last breath as well. kaSing's able to flash to safety, and everything goes wide. kaSing laughs in the face of H2k, escaping with his life. That was 4 ultimates used for only a flash from kaSing. TP was even thrown out from Sheriff as well. So now Splyce have the opportunity to go on the offensive. The terrifying thing, he still has his stopwatch. I mentioned it a few minutes ago, and there's still 4 of them in the game. None of them used yet. So that ability to just stay alive and, you know, look for a re-engage potentially is still there.
But I will admit, without Flash focusing, you know, sort of chasing those Flash Winter's Bites, Flash Glacial Fissures is one of the options they had for an engage.
Yeah.
I use the term very loosely now, very loosely. But Splyce don't exactly have that, you know, Sedge ultimate or Rakan quickness to really say, okay, we're fighting now.
Yeah, but what they do have is control over the Baron. And you can see, look at these two wards in the H2k half of the jungle that are now unfortunately being played out. It means that you can TP flank with both kaSing and Odoamne, and that could be your opportunity to force a fight because you start the Baron, H2k come in, and they're just like, oh yeah, we don't want you to have that. And then Splyce set up this kind of flanking team fight where if they can get onto Selfie or Xerxe right from the get-go, then that is their opportunity to win out on all of these fights.
Well, you mentioned getting to Selfie or Xerxe. That's where the damage has to stick. Shook took a paddle star to the face, did not deal that much damage.
Yep.
He's got that Cinder Hulk, got the Kindle Gem, so a lot of HP stacked up. Not a huge amount of MR yet, but it will come. And then look, Smittyj as well takes the Q to the face, and it doesn't really matter. I do have a stat I just want to quickly remind you of. Splyce and H2k have 0 Barons secured this split. They have both conceded 5. When you've lost 4 games, that's a fairly obvious thing. But it does mean that this Baron and this win will be the first for both teams when it eventually comes.
See, but this game doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get a Baron, Quickshot.
I'm confident.
That's the thing you've always got to be careful of, because you don't need Baron to win the game, and the way in which Splyce are playing these side lanes, they're not relying on the Baron. They're relying on wave manipulation and pressure to secure another outer tower. So they're now 5-2 in turrets, and their gold lead is just coming off the fact that, oh, okay, they don't take the tower, and they kind of ruin my point, but they still
4.5.
4.5, that'll do.
I'll give you half that.
And another Drake.
Yeah. Got themselves that second Cloudjack, and you know what? 2 Clouds, when you want to play the side lanes, when you want to play wave manipulation, as you mentioned, those are pretty good Drakes to have.
And when you're fighting Peacocks, strong winds, if they can only fly 100 meters, would be really obnoxious to fly into. I got 1 clap.
I know. To be honest, I think we've killed it already. And lost
but
a
I mean,
game.
they haven't killed each other in ages, so I'm taking the LCK approach on this, and I'm trying to be entertaining. Ooh.
We'll get a review later, okay? we'll discuss this when we do VoD review next week, and we can sit back and see how that goes.
Was this funny?
Question though about the Baron, because yes, Splyce maybe don't need it. Do you think H2k need it? Do you think H2k want it? Like, they've got the teamfight comp. If they can force Splyce to respond, then they can just turn the engage.
Exactly that. They want to use the Baron to actually force a fight. And in the position that they're currently in, Splyce feel the need to answer. Odoamne is actually already here. He hasn't used his teleport. But the problem is H2k don't have deep enough vision to feel confident going to that fight onto a key member. And Splyce is still actually, because they always have mid control, they have a slow wave pushing up top. Like, Splyce still have a lot of control, which makes it really difficult for H2k to properly utilize the Baron and get the fight that they want.
What I like seeing from Splyce is when they are playing against a team where they are a little stronger, they are still in control. It feels a little more now. It feels a little larger than earlier. But in all previous games, Splyce, they were coming up against much stronger teams. Look at the paddle star on Xerxe, 50% of his hit points. Splyce have been able to push H2k away. H2k responded well to the Baron threat, Baron pressure. They shoved mid back into Splyce's territory. And now it's H2k with a little bit of zoning. But every time I look at the minimap, there's some Splyce minions doing work. That's the top lane in favor of Xerxe. Somebody has to catch the bot lane.
Yeah, so now Yasuo has gone. Splyce can get priority over mid and just sweep out this entire jungle. They might even just go for the mid tier 2 because they know someone has to go catch top. But Odoamne, he can just go down towards the bot lane now. He has his TP up and available. And yeah, it's just, again, it's kind of a favorable situation for Splyce. And what could have been a big team fight for H2k now hasn't really resulted. All
right, that Rage Blaze sitting with Odo has been for a little while. It's got another 900 gold, continues to stack up. Let's get some expectations now, looking forward. H2k are trying to force a fight, really trying to find a way to make that happen.
For sure.
What is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 minutes that'll break this game open?
Well, for Splyce, what they would love to do is ideally find a pick with Zoe when you're kind of dancing around this barren area. You want to kind of utilize the Trundle pillar and the CC that Braum provides to catch a target out of position like Promisq or Sheriff. Because I'm not entirely confident on their 5v5, but they might be forced into it anyway because H2k are just saying, right, we have a top wave pushed in, we're ready to go.
That's exactly what H2k are looking for. Need
got
to
a
find
turn, though.
the turn and burn. Sleepy Trouble Bubble finds Smittyj. Gets tagged by the paddle star. He's down to 50% and Sadism is on cooldown.
But you're seeing the range of Zoe and the obnoxious CC from people like Xerxe and kaSing. They're not actually hard committing at all. They're not getting in range to be turned. They're not getting in range to be turned on. And Splyce again. They're not fighting at all because they feel like they don't need to. They're just using waves and pressure to take more and more objectives.
Splyce are playing the map. H2k are trying to kill the raid boss. And the priority is giving Splyce the lead. 5-2 up, 3,000 gold. They continue to just maintain a grip on the game, and it's just in their control.
The thing is, this is what Splyce succeeded with so much last split, because it is a roster full of experienced players. Kobbe, kaSing, Nisqy arguably the newest, but even then, I believe last split he didn't join as a rookie because he played an entire split over in NA.
That counts.
You know, and Xerxe, Odo, these guys have all had experience when the team came together. They know how to play League of Legends. They're all talented individuals, and what they grew over the last split was an understanding of how to play around the map. So when you have this slow, meticulous game plan where it's very much about manipulating waves, knowing how to utilize pressure, this is the ideal situation for Splyce. And H2k are really struggling to get the fight that they want because Splyce just won't let them have it.
For anybody that watched last week's games, we actually had a narrative, myself and Foxtrot, about Splyce being the old dogs.
Yeah.
And you can't teach old dogs new tricks. That's why they're struggling in the meta and struggling in the craziness of A2
Here we go again.
Well. But this is exactly what old dogs know and love. It's a familiar park, a familiar walk, and it is a familiar Baron dance. H2k are rushing if they're going to be able to get this one down, unless Splyce can get in the pit. Gonna be stolen! How did Xerxe do it? In the ensuing fight, though, Odoamne is trying to wreck face. The Rage Blade is stacking, and the Titanic Hydra is tearing apart H2k. On the backside, Nisqy gets all the kills. Promisq and Selfie are running for their lives. It's a triple, and here comes Nisqy. Kobbe will close this one out in a moment or two. H2k will get aced. Kobbe takes him down, and Splyce in absolute control.
H2k get dismantled by Splyce and lose everything. All 5 members are dead. Splyce secured the Baron, and they have their eyes set on the first inhibitor of the game.
Oh man, death timers are fairly low actually. 10 seconds for Shook, Sheriff, Promisq. And look at Splyce. They're going to be content with the top inhib, going to be content with a middle inhib, and they're going to be hella happy with a 10,000 gold lead. I didn't even see if Xerxe did he smite that when he got into the pits. I actually lost track of it.
We're going to have to use the replay to find out, but H2k realized the only way they can get the fight they want is if they hard commit. But the moment Splyce is in this position, they need to turn, but instead they go for the 50-50. The burst from Nisqy combined with the smite from Xerxe was everything that they needed to secure the kill. And Nisqy sitting perfectly on the backline, utilizing his range and mobility to just pick off H2k left, right, and center. And then while Splyce did lose Odoamne, they're like, that's fine. We have more than enough damage to compensate, resulting in an ace and a Baron. Again, I really want to illustrate that the decision-making from H2k made sense.
Yeah.
The execution just wasn't there, and Splyce outperformed.
H2k got all shook up, no smite down. Xerxe jumps into the pit. Splyce with a monumentally massive lead. Are looking poised to take their first victory of the Summer Split, and it is in somewhat Splyce fashion. You know, it is not flashy in the early game.
You could say that H2k was hit by a gale force wind that they had no answer for.
That is absolutely what I will say in a moment or two when the Nexus is about to fall. See how epic that sounds.
Oh god, no,
With the crystals blowing up. But Nisqy 5-0-1 in the Zoe's got the Lich Bane, the Ludens, as well as the Rabadoodles Death Cap. A lot of DPS for those paddle stars. And a lot of vision. I mean, Splyce just got absolute control of this right-hand quadrant. And it's up to them. It has been up to them all game long.
Yep.
Not a gigantic lead, but control the whole time.
And I feel like this whole game has been, as you rightly said, very much like what we saw in Spring Split. A lot more slow, a lot more calculated, a lot more about execution of comps and trying to manipulate the map rather than just lane phase dominance and snowballing.
And of course, at the beginning of this game, we talked about the fact that Splyce is one of the representatives for us at Rift Rivals. They placed 3rd in spring. They'll be flying to North America on Sunday, I believe, actually very early. And this is a level of control that I am happy to see, but I'm anxious about how the EU teams will do. I don't really remember what happened at Rift Rivals last year. I blocked it from memory. Tried my best to delete it. And Splyce, let's see if they can do a little better than the 2017 representatives. Right now, they're going to close this game out, pick up the first win of Summer, and H2k are doing their best to defend. Not going to find a sleepy trouble bubble onto any targets yet. Kobbe's trying to dance on the edge of safety, but the long-range engage from both Promisq and Shook means this is tempered aggression.
It certainly is. And I've just got to quickly backtrack as Splyce are trying to set up for their second inhibitor of the game. They secured their first Baron of the Summer Split. Quickshot.
Oh, such good stuff.
You missed it.
I did indeed. My first call. I didn't expect the steal. I wasn't ready for it. But I can guarantee you that this is the highest Baron power play that Splyce have had all summer, okay? Now there is a quick stat through and through.
Oh, well played. Good recovery
The
there.
second inhibitor falls as that Nexus turret was under pressure. Fell as well. Splyce are unrelenting. This feels like a 2.5, 3 minute long siege. And H2k, they're down 10k gold. They're just looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, H2k just have to force a fight at some point. They need to wait for Splyce to really group up as a 5. That's the only way they're going to stay alive in this game, because Splyce can just hang around and just keep throwing this poke out, keep throwing this CC out. They don't really need to force anything. Just patient and calm play is all they need. The blue buff even going over to Zoe means that the poke can continue to come out. And I just want to see now a last-ditch effort fight from H2k.
Yeah, you saw the camera in the bottom left corner there. He'd have done coach for Splyce. You wouldn't think his team looked like they were winning with the facial reaction. A little nervous and anxious on this final siege. It is not over until the Nexus is knocked down. All right, third inhibitor is being defended here. Last stand saloon for H2k. Come on, hit the inhib, Kobbe.
Come on, H2k, fight.
Hit the inhib, Kobbe. It'll happen eventually. I'm waiting for it. Yay! There we go. There we go. Come on. Okay, I'll accept it. I got 2 autos. Still watching this inhib. You watching the inhib with me, Vedius?
Here we go.
All right, it's on to Shook. Smittyj stepping forward, burning agony. And
are they really going to wait for another Baron?
I think they are. I think they are. Remember, old dog. Remember the story, okay? You've got a bunch of grandpas on the side of Splyce. And you go back a few years in EU history and legacy, the dynasties of old, when it came to Baron dancers and Baron securers and whatnot. It's in our blood. kaSing says, not a jot. He flashes forward, Glacial Prism comes down. Oh, you're kidding! The inhibitor finally goes down. Thank you, Mr. Winion. A flash defensively from Odoamne, but he's going to get taken out. I think inhibitor for Odo, it still counts. It's still absolute control. Please do not get me wrong. But Splyce are playing this exceptionally safe. They do not want to throw the first gigantic lead that they've got in Summer.
So I will give Splyce the benefit of the doubt, and we'll throughout this game, we have said Splyce don't really want a 5v5.
Correct.
Their whole goal is to kind of just use the poke, use the CC, to just be obnoxious and slowly whittle them down. Odo missed positions. I feel like that he should have really been hanging around actually towards the top lane. But then there's the risk that H2k just hard engage on your 4-man. And with Baron spawning it relatively soon, they just made the decision, you know what? We'll sacrifice Odo. He has TP. The moment Baron spawns, he can just TP in. We managed to still get 2 inhibs, so we're not too unhappy.
I think it's very important you say that, Vedius, because I, of course, am making jokes and memeing about the slow push, but compositionally speaking, it's actually not really what Splyce were wanting to do. So they are playing to their win condition, they are playing intentionally, and they're playing for the win, and you have to respect that. But you also have to let me giggle a little bit.
Oh no, I'm down for giggling.
So
I'm all down for that. They were able to secure it, and here comes a big Baron for H2k's last hope is to find a successful fight here. But they have no vision, they have no priority over mid because they do not have an inhibitor.
Now, H2k are going to look to Leonidas for inspiration in the tight choke points. This is where we fight. This is where we hold them.
Here we go.
Let's see whether or not H2k can make it happen. A Baron was stolen already by Xerxe, down to 8,000 hit points. Oh my word! Promisq's down before he can get his ultimate. Xerxe's running along in the front line. Baron is no longer the focus. Odoamne is unleashed. Here comes Kobbe. H2k, take that back. Easy to kill. Splyce get another ace.
Splyce just ripped through H2k once again. They have all 5 members alive, the TPs are coming through, and the game win is in their eyes.
Splyce find a fantastic victory. Look at the player cams. Xerxe is smiling from ear to ear. 0-0-10. Baron steal, and with Gale Force Winds behind Splyce, they knock H2k out of the air. Not quite as dramatic as I was hoping, Vedius, but I tried.
You could have said they knocked the wind out of H2k.
Oh, that would have been much better. Oh. I didn't prep it enough with you, buddy.
But Splyce, we have to credit them for is playing towards their win conditions.
Yes.
Individuals stepping up and having a greater impact. Nisqy once again having a really good performance on the Zoe. Definitely feel like this is a big comfort pick now for him. And Odo, even though he was the only player on their team to die, he contributed significantly. And I think it's just worth recognizing that Splyce as a team played well, but in the current meta, this style is challenging to make work.
Yes, it absolutely is. 1-4 now as we open up week 3, the first win for Splyce.
Well done, Peter.
Well, they have one more game and they fly to North America. And I think some kudos to Xerxe, turned this game around a little bit. We prepped a lot in terms of jungle proximity, in terms of Xerxe's impact in the early game. And within, what, 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes of gameplay, they tower dove top, as they should, with the composition they put together. So good development on one of the weaker areas of gameplay in the Splyce.
And I feel like that for H2k, their strategy was fine. They played around bot a little bit. We didn't see Sheriff falling behind. He was actually ahead in terms of farm. He did pretty well in gold. But the biggest issue that we're now consistently seeing from H2k is their ability to execute. And I feel like that even if they have the right idea in mind, when it comes to actually making the plays that they need to in order to find the wins, being the proactive ones and finding those small windows, we are not seeing that from H2k, which is why they sit in 10th place right now.
Yeah, exactly. And even this composition, you know, we said in picks and bans, Vedius, you actually said some of the champs, how they can work together in the early game, the Sej, the Yasuo, Xayah, Rakan, even the pick and ban, the draft, didn't lean into the strengths or the abilities that H2k had. Taking a look at, obviously, the post-game breakdown, big damage there for Nisqy on Zoe. I actually think we've got a couple of highlights which we'll jump to in a moment or two. But really, for me, it was just about control. It was just, Splyce really just held H2k back. They put their hand on H2k's forehead and prevented them landing any punches the entire game long.
Basically that, I am in full agreement. And we're going to have a look through some of the great plays that Nisqy did make on the Zoe. I love the way in which he played around Baron, but also some of the picks that he was able to find. You can see that, you know, this is just him demonstrating he is a prodigal clay pigeon shooter in the making. Finding the first kill early on against the Rakan, Promisq rather, down in the bottom lane, or around the blue buff. And this is really where he was able to shine for me, because he positioned behind the Baron pit, he used his range to his advantage, and he was just chipping and pushing H2k members out of the fight without them really being able to touch him.
Just really good play. Xerxe with the Baron steal there as well. This was the first ace. It was a bit of a crazy fight with literally everybody in the same sort of like 500 units of one another. The Nisqy come out on top. Promisq dies at the beginning of the first replay, dies at the end of this replay as well. And just a very good performance, right? Splyce first win. It's the beginning of a turnaround, but it's still a lot that they have to do to turn the split around.
Yes, Splyce still sitting pretty at the bottom of the standings. They don't really get a week off to change things out, because they're going to have to go straight to Rift Rivals.
But maybe that'll be good. Maybe that'll help them play against North America. You guys at home, I've got some work for you. Jump onto Twitter. Vote at LOL Esports for your player of the game. Nisqy, Xerxe, or Odoamne. It's up to you to decide. Only you have the power, because we don't trust Vedius.
But the ultimate vote is, who is the prettier peacock, me or Trevor? Let us know.
Let's check in with Medic and see what Nisqy has to say about their win. I'm so sorry.
I'll be honest, I'm just glad we're not watching Vedius do that peacock dance anymore. I'm joined by Nisqy. Congratulations on your first win of the split. It's taken you a while, but Splyce finally seemed to have a sort of style that works for you. Why was it that it took you so long to actually start performing?
I think, for example, today, our communication was like insane, you know, like everyone was just talking and like everyone knew what was going on the map, and I think that's the most important thing for us right now. So.
Okay, so what was it about your communication that was struggling at the start of the split? Because at the end of summer, at the end of spring, you looked like a really strong, cohesive team.
Our issue was that everyone had like plans, but we weren't doing anything basically. We were just like talking 24/7, but not like doing anything in the game. So right now we make plans and we follow them as well. So that's what made us win today.
Does that go down to a specific player? Do you have a shot caller that says the plan you have to go for?
I mean, I don't think it's like one player. It's like, I think it's like all of us just like realizing what we have to do at like certain points of the game, and yeah, that's it, I think.
It seems to be working well for you. Congratulations, as I said, on that first win. You have Rift Rivals next week, flying out to America. It's not the easiest of competition. Echo Fox, 100 Thieves, and Team Liquid. How do you think your chances are going up against those guys?
I mean, I think macro-wise, like in mid-game and late-game, I don't think we should be like worse than them. I'm pretty sure like we like beat them in the macro, but I think early game, if I know that they're not that bad in NA as early game teams, so yeah, I think we just gotta make sure that we don't lose it in early games.
Because a lot of people are comparing you to Phoenix One. You know, last year they came as the 8th place team and they were able to take some wins. Do you think you'll be able to take some wins in the end?
I'm pretty sure we'll take like a lot of wins.
Okay, well, hopefully. If for EU's side, I hope that happens, Nisqy. Thank you very much for joining me.
You.
We're going to go to a quick break before our 4th game of the day. Stay tuned.
He has enough mana to keep being annoying, and Caps didn't get to push out and get that super
Scatter
early
the
recall.
weak, gets the stun, Caps flashes forward,
Oh, he's in
turns it
tower!
onto Perks, first blood to Baby Faker!
Oh my god, that is why I like this guy so
Perks even picks himself up the flash, but here comes Caps.
Blocks are there as well. The heal on towards Perks. Another sleepy trouble bubble. And they're going to get the double. Caps jumps in though. He's trying to get these soldiers to do some work for him. The stopwatch out of Perks, but he has nowhere to go. Caps will get a consolation prize.
I'm gonna smash him so hard that he's gonna think that it's an international tournament.
Oh, Caps! He just solo killed Perks!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an international event.